معلش معلش بالمرة
السلام عليكم ورحمة
معلش
الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
وهيك
الحمد لله
معلش
والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. اللهم رب إبراهيم وميكائيل وإسرافيل فاطر السماوات والأرض عالم الغيب والشهادة
سامع؟
لحظة بس شيل هاي لأنه كثير
وعبادك فيما كانوا فيه يختلفون اهدنا لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت.
نعم.
اللهم اغفر لنا في مجلسنا هذا
The Sheikh started with asking Allah Azza wa Jal, as usual, to accept from us and to forgive our gathering and to bless our gathering and to bless us and have mercy on us. Tonight, inshallah, we're going to talk about a subject that we talked about it in general, about poverty and rich. In general, and in the life of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in particular. There is a lot of research in this, and people had talked about the faqih. Which one is better? The one who is poor and he is patient, or the rich who is grateful? We need to remind everybody about hadith that authenticated that the Prophet ﷺ, rich is not from giving from having too much, because people have a lot of millions but they're not rich. In their heart they have poverty. Nothing opens it except dust. They have billions. They live in this life like poor, and they want to be accountable as rich. So rich is not how much money you have, it's how much you have self satisfaction. The Prophet ﷺ, he stood on the minbar one time and said that a servant Allah gave him to give him what's in this life, whatever he wants and what he has, and he chose what Allah has. As a servant, Allah has given him a choice to give him from this life whatever he wants and what Allah has. The Prophet ﷺ, one time the Prophet ﷺ was sitting down and Umar started crying, and the Prophet ﷺ told him, "What makes you cry?" He said, "Look at Kisra and Qaisar, and they're living the luxury life, and you are living like in this situation." He said, "Won't you be happy that they have this life and we get the hereafter?" It is like that. Let them have this life and we have the hereafter. These two hadiths and others like it from what is narrated in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ indicate very clearly that the Prophet ﷺ chose the hereafter over this life, and he was given a choice to be a king and a prophet, or to be a servant and a prophet, and he chose to be a slave to Allah. And there is a lot of hadith that mention this meaning and something closer to, and the choice that the Prophet ﷺ had, and when he was given a choice, and he chose, and he looked to Jibril, and he told him to be humble to your Lord, and he chose the hereafter. And if he chose the mountains to be gold, they will be walking with him as gold. Allah will make it for him. And from everything people are so concerned about in this life, he would have had it. But he, alayhi salatu wasalam, it chose to be a servant to Allah Azza wa Jal, to eat just like the slave does, and to sit like a slave. He chose that for himself. After Jibril told him, and who gave him an advice, I said, be humble to your Lord, when that choice came in. And he chose to be a servant to Allah. Some people, they will not be in a good condition unless they are poor, or vice versa. People are different, and Allah is the one who is knowledgeable. He gives His servant what is good for them. Some of the servant that they will not be good to Allah except being sick, or some that they will have the good health, and if Allah made him sick, he will be corrupted and he will be in a bad situation. And people are always disputed which one is better, the poor who are patient or the grateful rich person. And people always dispute about this matter, and they keep debating it. And a lot of them, either he is following one of his desires and his urges and his self, and some they are arrogant, they have no knowledge. And the scholar, they said that the patient poor person, it is higher status than the grateful person, rich person. And others said it's no, the other way, and some they said no, they're equal. Because Allah said the most better for you to Allah is the one who is more pious, the more God conscious. So if the poor person is more God conscious, he will be in a higher status to Allah than the rich person. And if the rich person more God conscious than the other one, then he is closer to Allah. Meaning, if they both use what Allah gives them to obey Allah and doing the obligation that Allah told them, they are higher in status than the other person. So the standard is not how much money you have, or it's not absolute to either rich or poor. It is about piety, about being God conscious. Allah order you at the time of poor is different than the ones that are rich. And each one is a test from Allah. So the goodness is a test, so each one depends on how they take that how they obey Allah Azza wa Jal is what makes them different. Being poor or rich are two conditions that people are go through, just like traveling and staying, and health and position and poor and all that stuff. All of these, you cannot say that one of them is better than the other. Like, no one can say the one who is traveling is higher than the one who is in a resort, or vice versa, than the one who travels. That's not how things are done. or to say that
ومن هو أعلى مقاما عند الله من الأصحاء لا يفضل تفضيلا
there
مطلقا
is no absolute preference because of these
يؤخذ
conditions,
به
but
باختيار
it
آخر
is with a different
فهو ربنا
criteria that
جل
Allah
جلاله
has
إن
clarified that
أكرمكم عند الله
the most
أتقاكم
honored of
المثال
you
على
with
علمه
Allah
وعلم
is the
صحته
one who is more
وخبرته
pious.
وحالة صحته
It doesn't matter
وعلم
whether you're rich,
وصفته
poor,
وحالة
sick,
جسده وحالة
healthy,
مرضه وحالة
traveling,
ثمرة
residing.
عبادته
So
العبودية
whomever worship Allah Azza wa
فليعبد
in the
عز وجل
way that Allah is
هذا
accepted,
الأمر
this
لله
is the most accepted by Allah.
الناس عبر التاريخ
And people
البشري
during
كان
time
ثلاثة أصناف
are three types.
فمنهم الغني الذي
Some
يجد
of them
ما
are
يزيد عن
rich,
كفايته وحاجته
who is better,
ومنهم
who have
الذي
more than what he
لا
needs.
يبلغ ما يملكه كمال كفايته ومنهم من جعل رزقه كفافا
And some that Allah made
لا
his
ينفق على قدر كفايته
risk is enough.
وسبحان الله من الأصناف الثلاثة موجودة عبر التاريخ في الأنبياء والمرسلين والموفقين والصالحين والمهديين من عباد الله عز وجل لقد كان في أنبياء الله من كان غنيا كإبراهيم الخليل وأيوب وداود وسليمان كما كان من الصالحين من صحابة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أغنياء كعثمان بن عفان وعبد الرحمن
And some of the companions were poor, and some they were rich, and the Shaykh has mentioned names like Athbar, Zubair, and so on and so forth. And these companions are the best after.
ومنهم من كان فقيرا كالمسيح عيسى بن مريم ويحيى بن زكريا وعلي بن ابي طالب وابي ذر الغفاري ومصعب بن عمير وسلمان الفارسي وهؤلاء ايضا من افضل الخلق بعد النبيين
And the Shaykh is mentioning some of the poor ones from the companions, and some who has he's rich one times and poor one times.
يعني واتى باحسان الاغنياء
And he did what the goodness of the rich, being grateful rich person, and the patient poor.
عقبت عليه اطوار الفقر
Just like the Prophet ﷺ.
وبعث فقيرا ومات غنيا الله جل وعلا في نهايه المرحله الدعويه جاء نصر الله والفتح
At the end of the message, the life of the Prophet ﷺ, he was
واعلموا ان ما
poor,
غنمتم من شيء
and then all the goodness that came in,
يسالونك عن الانفال قل الانفال لله والرسول
and the Shaykh is saying all the anfal, all of this under the hand of the Prophet ﷺ. But the difference is the Prophet ﷺ, he did not enjoy it for himself. He used to get all this money, all this thing, and he will take it immediately and spend it for the sake of Allah.
لا يكاد يبيت ليله
He don't stay one night and he have something in his life
ولا ينفق
that he don't spend. He used to have a lot,
لا يدخره
but he don't save it.
كنزه
He don't save it for himself.
صلوات ربي وسلامه عليه كان يعطي عطاء
He used to give like a person who don't fear poverty.
ما عندوش يقترض لحد ما ربنا يفتح ويسوق هذه النفسيه النبويه
This
يعني نتعرف عليها
life of Rasulullah, which is very important. He don't keep nothing for himself, not because he is poor. He has all the money in the vaults, but he never left it for himself. He is not like the tyrants or the kings who keep the treasures for themselves and to those close to them, or those who are make them happy and they leave their people poor. This is not the act of the Prophet ﷺ. Allah made him rich, meaning he don't need anything, anybody. At one time he was poor, and all the companions who were rich, Allah said for the Allah said that for the immigrants who are poor, who left everything behind, because they left everything behind them and they left to the Prophet ﷺ. So most of the migrants, they were poor. Not originally they were poor, but they became poor because they left everything behind.
وبعد أن خرجوا من كل شيء لله عز وجل. وإحنا من يعني تذكرون قصة
You know the
ربح
story
البيع ربح البيع
when the Prophet
ربح
ﷺ
البيع
said,
جئت ناصرا
you,
فقيرا لا مال لك واشتغلت
you have gained in this selling. The companion who wanted to leave Quraysh, and he was rich and they did not want to leave him. They said, oh, you came to us with nothing and now you're rich. He said, okay, how about if I give you everything and let me go by myself? They said, okay. So when he arrived to Al-Madinah, the Prophet ﷺ said, the successful is this trade that you made successful, and he ﷺ repeated it several times. In the hadith that Allah's Prophet said, "Oh, make me among the miskeens and make me live like miskin and send me as miskin." With this narration is not proven that it is right. It's not proven, but let's suppose it is proven, meaning he did not ask Allah to have less money. Allah, his Prophet ﷺ, he used to ask Allah's refuge from being poor, and he always made it in his dua that he said he always combined poverty with disbelief in Allah. He did not ask Allah Azza wa Jal with poverty, so he would not have anything, but it was meant that the Prophet ﷺ, when he asked Allah, he will have the humbleness of the poor, that he wouldn't have that arrogance and the ego in his heart, nor in his soul. The Prophet ﷺ, when he asked Allah Azza wa Jal this, he didn't ask him poverty and to be in hardship. No, he asked him not to be among the tyrants or the arrogance, because a person might be poor and have that arrogance, and this increase in his matter. In the hadith, 3, Allah will not speak to them at the day of judgment, and he will not look at them at the day of judgment, nor would he purify them, and they have great pain. A king who is liar and a sheikh who commit like whomever a king, he should not lie. He don't need to lie. There is nothing that forces you to lie. There is nothing you fear to lie. You are the one who put people accountable. Yeah, this life. Why would you need to lie? And a poor person who is arrogant. And the third one is an old man who commits adultery. After all this age, you go into the crime of adultery. These are three categories. Allah will not look at them, will not talk to them, He will not purify them, and they have severe punishment. So the maskana, what the Prophet ﷺ is asking for, is the leniency and the humbleness of the poor people. And miskin in Arabic means also humble. So if that saying is right of the Prophet ﷺ, the meaning is the humbleness to Allah Azza wa Jal, and not to be among the tyrants, the arrogant. Meaning, I'm humble to you, O my Lord, and don't mean to be arrogant. And I'm always in need of you, O my Lord, O my Allah, O Allah. So here the Prophet ﷺ is showing humiliation, humbleness to Allah the Almighty. And this, the Prophet ﷺ is trying to show his humbleness to his Allah and his need to Him.
في النهاية
At the end,
الغريب الأثر اللهم أحيني مسكينا وأمتني مسكينا واحشرني في زمرة المساكين. نعم يقول
this
أراد
hadith,
به التواضع
he
والإخبات
wants
وألا
humbleness
يكون
and not to
من
be arrogant and
الجبارين
tyrant.
المتكبرين. اللهم اهدنا سواء السبيل
آمين.
وقنا عذابك يوم تبعث.
آمين.
الخلاصة
In 70,
ما صح من أن النبي عليه الصلاة
it is
والسلام كان ينظر الهلال ثم الهلال
it is
ثم الهلال
proven that 2 months nothing, no fire comes in his house except dates and the wheat bread. But Allah the Almighty, at the end of the life of the Prophet ﷺ, He gave him abundance, but he lived as humble, and He gave him a lot, but he still lived as a humble person.
يسألونك عن الأنفال قل الأنفال لله ورسوله واعلموا أن ما غنمتم من شيء فأن لله خمسه وللرسول. لكن هل كان يكتنز هذا لنفسه يتمتع به يهرب إلى بيت الخارج؟
العشاء
ما كان هذا
والفجر 6.
بل كان يعطي.
The Prophet used to give and spend the sake of Allah, as he don't fear poverty ever, and he never was asked about Islam. He will use everything in it, and he gave one sheep of what's the amount of between 2 mountains. And he went back to his tribe and he said, embrace Islam. I came from a man who never feared poverty. So poverty, he was poor, and Allah made him rich where he don't need people. And the Prophet used to ask Allah's refuge from poverty, and he made it compared to disbelief. And maybe Allah answered him for this at the end of his life. But when Allah brought him the life with what it had, he never treasured it, he never put it on himself, on luxury. No, he spent it on the sake of Allah. And be careful of an important issue, that everything that came from Rasulullah after his death never was inherited. Because he said, we the prophets, we don't get inherited. Everything is the sake of Allah. So everything in his hand, in his life, was spent in the sake of Allah immediately. And Fatima, when she asked her inheritance, and Abu Bakr said, I'll give you anything, but he, Ali said, that hadith. What we leave is sadaqah, charity for Allah. They did not give no money. And this is not all of us. He said, we the prophets, so it's all the prophets. So he will not be asking a reward for delivering the message of Allah. And he said, whatever I ask, I might reward from Allah. I just need the goodness to the relatives. This is the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. So what happened in this area, it's either talked about a period of or a stage in the life of the Prophet ﷺ, or what envelope that Allah's Prophet, he spent all the money that Allah gave him. He never treasured for himself, he never kept it for himself, nor to make his life luxury life, or those that under him, from his wife and daughters. It was for the sake of Allah, and he never left anything for himself. When he went to Allah Azza wa Jal, everything he left, it was a charity. It went to the treasury of the Muslims. What we have left is a charity. One last issue we would like to discuss: about he has his shield bonded at where the Jew. It was either 20 soft food or 30. They said, where are the companions? Where's Abdurrahman Auf? Where's the rich Muslims? Why didn't come to the Prophet ﷺ to put his shield in there with the Jew who kept his armor? So first we need to be patient and understand, and we need to read the history and go back to the scholars on these issues that we might have wrong. The hadith, they have people who explain. Ibn Hajar, he described al-Bukhari until they said no migration after Fath, meaning no. From Mecca, the ulama, they said no hijrah after there is no more knowledge after this knowledge of Ibn Hajar. So we need to understand before we go about the hadith and start interpreting our way and go right and left. Let's see what the scholars said about this hadith and interpreting it. If you have a problem with an issue, before you ask anybody and ask non-Muslims about the explanation, ask the scholars, the big scholars of Islam. We have An-Nawawi, Ibn Hajar, those who explain the Bukhari, and the scholars Abu Hanifa and Abu Hanifa, Shafi'i, Ibn Hanbal, and you have great scholars. So before you try to use yourself in explaining this hadith or criticism, that you need to go back and see what they said. If you have access on how to go to the right website to find out, then you do that. Like say, explain to me what the scholar said. I have some kind of doubt, or I need to understand, I need to benefit from this. I need to know what is the true knowledge about this. So the first thing we need to know about this hadith, let's see the sanad. Is it authenticated hadith? Yes, it is. There's no doubt about it. The discussion is the explanation and the interpretation of it, why it did happen. A lot of action of the Prophet ﷺ on he want to teach people. When I forget, I will not be humiliated. The Prophet ﷺ, Allah made him forget. So the Shaykh after him, when he forget, he's not immune. The Prophet ﷺ forgot, and Allah chose him as an orphan, the Prophet as an orphan, so it will not be something that people will put down the orphans. He ﷺ was an orphan, and Allah took care of him and took care of him until he became a master. So a lot of issues happen. Allah wants us to know, first of all, to bond something for a reason. It happens during, Allah said, if you are traveling, that you can bond. So when it happened when the Prophet resided, that means it is permitted to do that. Meaning, if you only take the ayah in the Quran, then you will only make the bonding only in traveling. But Allah Azza wa Jal wants to show us His mercy, that it is allowed when you are allowed, and that's why He made His Prophet do it. Second thing, to treat, to how to deal with people who might have not permissible money, like to deal with non-Muslims I don't care about where their money comes from. Maybe he got it from usury, from riba.
أعنت على الإثم والعدوان.
So if I work with him, do I help him in the wrong? No.
يجوز
It is
معاملة
allowed to
أصحاب
deal
المذاهب المختلطة والمحرمات
people
ما
who
دام
have
يأخذون
different,
المال
as
بطريقة
long as the
شرعية.
way the money comes to you in a permissible way.
أنهم يأكلون الربا
Allah
ويأكلون
knew
الربا
that the
لكن ينتقل
Jews,
إليهم
they did eat
الشروط
riba, they did take it, but their contract with the Prophet ﷺ was a permissible contract. And everybody is responsible about their money. Everybody is responsible how he gained his money and how he spent it. So it is, so we learn from this that it is allowed to deal with non-Muslims in selling and buying, even if the non-Muslims gain their money with non-Muslims. And you know, in the Medina used to be Jews, and usury was in their culture from before. I don't think that the Prophet ﷺ took that bonding with riba. No, no, he did not do the riba. Just because the Prophet ﷺ made deal with a Jew, that does not mean that he dealt with interest and riba. No, he did not. Just because you are dealing with someone who is using riba, that does not do. Yeah, even here there is zero interest in a lot of dealings. So don't think that the Prophet ﷺ dealt with that person with riba. So why is it that the companions did not help the Prophet ﷺ? He didn't ask for their help. The Prophet ﷺ, he didn't want to take from the companions because they don't like to take it back from him. Like among us, when we deal with each other, we like to fix. We don't like that. A lot of people like they don't take money from us. So the Prophet ﷺ don't want to burden his companions and himself. They will give him the money with the food without anything in return. But the Prophet ﷺ wanted to teach us that we could deal with non-Muslims. And Abu Bakr went and paid the bond and took the shield back and gave it to Ali ibn Abi Talib. So the meaning here, there is wisdom that we need to learn about the action of the Prophet ﷺ. On top of it, that it is allowed, permissible to deal with non-Muslims. Another important issue, the Prophet ﷺ, just because he's a ruler and on top of a state, that everybody are allowed to humiliate it. No, the people's money is protected by Allah and His Messenger, and just like the the money of the Muslims is protected under Islam, you cannot take it except with the right way, and he puts guarantees that their rights is preserved. It's not only by trust. And we need to learn, if we made a debt for a long period, to write it down, to write down every debt, every loan, and not just trust. It will be an exception. So if one of you trusted each other, let those who were trusted give their duty back and do not hold the testimony. So when we deal with these stories, you need to verify this authenticity. The second thing, look at the explanation of the scholars and what direction they put it in the proper way that does not contradict the other actions of the Prophet ﷺ or other statements of the Prophet ﷺ. So we either could misunderstand something, unintentional understanding. Maybe you understood something I did not mean, or I meant something you didn't understand. My statement did not get the right understanding. So you have to understand, learn from those who tell you about the meaning, and to have good intention good thinking. Allah has told us to stay away from any guess, and that's how you can understand and learn about the Prophet ﷺ, understand the wisdom uh, of the Prophet ﷺ. And those who try to take the holiness of the Prophet ﷺ, the holiness of uh, what the best generation that walked on earth. The actions of the prophets are protected, but the companions, you might find things in it and some problems, but it goes between something that Allah accepts and some Allah will forgive. It will be a sin that are forgiven or a grateful work or deed that they have provided. So all the companions, their actions between an action that Allah is grateful for, or it will be a sin that Allah will forgive their sins. And that's the difference between them and others, that Allah always makes them successful to repent back to Him. That's why Allah forgive them, because they don't insist on a sin they did. And this is because of their companionship to the Prophet ﷺ. I hope this is something we have given it its dues. نسأل الله success إن شاء الله. اللهم صل على النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.